States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sandy, roll call, please.
Councilmember Green, excuse me, Stacy Green, my apologies. Councilmember Kim Green. Here. Councilmember Bob Hall.
Here.
Councilmember Sue Tavalero.
Here.
Mayor Palfini.
And I am here. Before we get started this evening, I would like to recognize the passing of Chuck Sutton on 5/8/2018. The City of Weed wishes to express our condolences to his family. And I would like to direct the staff to create a proclamation of his service to the council, to the city, and to its citizens. And that's it. With that, now is the time for non-agenda public comments. It's a time for people to speak on any item that is not currently on the agenda. And we can take no action, but we can recognize it for a future agenda.
Hi, Jim Striegel, 2601 North Old Stage Road. I think, before I get into what I was going to say, I think maybe a tree out by the Abner Reed statue with a plaque on it for Chuck would be a nice gesture. He worked with you guys and for the city for a long time, so maybe you can take that up in the next meeting or later. As you can see from what I passed out, I've been asked by numerous people, including some here, if I was going to do a Weed Fest concert in 2018. It's a lot of work for me. It's 500 to 1,000 hours of free time that I put into each concert, and I didn't want to do it unless we could actually have cannabis consumption at the event. So far, legally in the state, and it hasn't been feasible. But now, with California state law as it is, they just had an event this last weekend in Sacramento, the High Times Cannabis Cup. I got a printout there from the newspaper article from the Sacramento Bee. Over 15,000 people in attendance, raised $200,000 to $300,000 for the city of Sacramento. The Metro Police said no arrests. 2 people were cited for gambling. No fights, no violence. Lots of sales, lots of business, live music, food, 285 vendors, big event. And I saw this on the news. I said, well, you know, if it's good for Sacramento, everything's better in weed, on weed, whatever. But it put the wind back in my sails, and so I worked up, as you see the poster there. I'd like to do a Weed Fest 2018, a harvest festival, tentative date September 22nd, 3 weeks after Labor Day. The average temperature on that day for weed is 76 degrees, perfect climate. It's also the same weekend as Earth Dance International's Meditation for Peace, and we might be able to tie in with that event. It goes well with what I'm proposing. This would be hopefully an alcohol-free event. The money that we don't make or that we lose from lack of a beer garden, I hope we could have like a weed garden where the concert goers could buy cannabis legally, because it's recreational legal now, from either the 2 dispensaries on Main Street, and we could set up a consumption area, a weed garden, inside a Heritage Plaza under a tent with maybe some visual blocking or tarp on one side to block visual access if there's maybe minors in the street or something. But the event in Sacramento is 21 and older. We could try and do that if people are concerned about minors at an event like that. We could get a lot of vendors. I want to be able to raise funds again. I'd love to have the beneficiary be the city of Weed for study and creation of a small park down under the Weed Arch where they have the creek is. I know you got plans for that. It's kind of been a back burner thing for a number of years, but that's kind of would be like my pet project that I can see, or downtown beautification, anything like that. But I'm willing to spend the hundreds of hours. I've got people donating this time to be on an organization committee. So what I'd like to get from the council is a verbal, okay, we can do it if it's all your ducks are in a row. And we're going to have 2 to 3 organizational meetings in the next month, and then come back at the next council meeting with potential corporate sponsors, who I hope will pay for some good music from maybe a Bay Area band, some Southern Oregon bands. And let me know if you guys can give me a verbal.
We can't give any kind of verbal action on public comment. Oh, I have to press it on.
It's on.
Oh, now it's on. We can't give any verbal during public comment, Jimmy. I think we should, if we want to entertain your idea, then we'll need to get together with maybe some parties that might be involved, which would be, I'm thinking, law enforcement to make sure that we've got our ducks in a row. Chamber of Commerce possibly to help with sponsorship of some sort so that we can get some protection. Anyway, kind of the usual for an event. So we can put it on next month's agenda and take a look at the pros and cons, and then and have discussions in between time with those parties.
Okay, well, I'll call, make an appointment, we can get together. If the chamber's involved, usually they want to have a beer garden. I'd like this to be a non-alcohol event. And chamber, I don't think will get involved if they can't make some money, so.
Okay, gotcha.
Thanks, but those posters are collector's items. And the golf tournament's a little tongue-in-cheek, but it's been on my back burner for a long time.
It might work.
There's going to be a golf tournament marijuana policy project, which is the legislative lobbying group, is having a golf tournament in New Jersey in July. People are ponying up $350 a head to go to this. We could maybe get 100 a head, and you'll have golfers who like to get high come to Weed for the Weed Golf Tournament and pack that course and have a big concert afterwards, a big meal. They could make all the alcohol sales at the concert, the golf course could. I got a lot of ideas.
Jimmy's dreaming.
So, Jimmy, have you actually brought this idea to the golf course yet?
Of course not.
Oh, okay, because I was like, thought it was a done deal already on this part.
I can only do that, want to try and do that if we can do the Weed Fest, get that approval, and run the two same weekend.
Oh.
Run that on the Sunday as opposed to Saturday for the Weed Fest. Hotels would be full.
Because I think I think this would be great even if this didn't go.
Yeah.
But
Mr. Mayor?
I think that one.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
For that, my thought about the whole project's coming forward is that, I think what we mentioned over there, the consumption event, when it says open freely and there's no regulations, that's scary for me. For anyone to have an outdoor event with no regulations on, you can't monitor every person about what they're supposed to have, and there's laws that are 6 ounces or 8 ounces they can have, or whatever. In public, I don't know. But that's my concern. And then the other piece is that when you say that weedopengolf.com, have you registered that domain?
Which one?
On their flyer that says start time, high noon.
Oh, yeah, I got that domain, yeah.
You have that okay from
Yeah,
the
weedopengolf.com. I've got that.
Okay, and the golf course is aware of that?
No.
Because that's referring to them.
No, that just says Weed Open Golf. It doesn't say Weed Golf Course.
Mike-
Now, if I registered weedgolfcourse.com, I see them, but this is just about an event, not the location.
My concern is about when you have it printed, it refers to Lake Chastity and the Weed Golf Course indirectly.
Oh, yeah.
So we want to be careful about that.
Okay, I understand.
So I'm just, when I'm hearing, I saw the Sacramento event online.
Yeah.
And on TV. And then when we are sponsoring events, my concern is about that. So I know we can't actually, but that's my thought.
Okay, and I probably want to limit discussion because this isn't an item that was on the agenda, so I'm going to cut it off.
Okay.
Thank you, yeah, and we'll talk.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other comments from the crowd?
I won't be as long as Jimmy, I promise. But he mentioned Heritage Park. I'd like you guys to consider.
Name and
I'm
address.
sorry, Jim Taylor, 810 Hillside Drive, Weed. I'd like to request an ordinance be passed to post Heritage Park off limits to dogs. Along with community volunteers, I have personally picked up gallons of dog waste just this spring out of the park down there. The park was established by our group, Weed Pride, numerous volunteers with the help of the city crew. The condition the park is in now.
Jim, can you speak into the
I'm sorry.
microphone?
The condition the park is in now, I would not let my 6- and 8-year-old granddaughters play in that park down there. It's really a mess, and I don't know whether any of you have been down there lately to see it, but there's dog mess all over, every day. There's spots that oh, this big that the grass is dead, period. You can't replant grass into that. That all has to be dug out, new soil brought in, and new seed put in. So I know there's going to be opposition to this if you do something like this, but I thank you for your consideration anyway.
Thanks, Jim. Can we put surveillance on that park? Don't we have the portable surveillance units? What? There's power available? Yeah, we have power. I can hear you fine, but maybe the crowd can't.
Go on, there you go. If there's power available, we can do that, yes.
Okay. Maybe we can address it that way versus saying no dogs, but maybe start doing a few citations might be a,
Can't we just put a sign that says no animals allowed?
well,
I mean, and have the surveillance, but I think we should put up some signs too.
What do we have, excuse me, Mr. Mayor, Martin, what do we have right now if somebody, if we had a habitual person taking their dog there, is there anything?
The municipal code right now states that you as an owner of your dog are responsible for that cleanup, right? I believe they're there. We have cleanup methods and tools there with bags and things to do that. It just takes the responsibility of those people to do that. And if they don't and they get caught, then they can be cited for that.
What do you think we're discussing this with staff.
It's too loud. You want to turn down the thing you said you're responsible for it. It's over
I
here.
don't know how
When
to
you finish, it's on the main here. You have to turn the main down. It's too
Go for it.
I
loud.
don't know how to do it. Can you do it?
I'm not going to touch it.
Just turn yours off. If you're not talking, turn it off.
If we put a sign up that says no dogs, we're going to need an ordinance, to do that.
Yeah, there's no enforcement for that, to just put a sign
Okay.
up.
And what is the fine if somebody does that, do you know?
I couldn't tell you.
Is
what the
that
fine
one of the minors that we,
It's an infraction within the municipal code.
is-
You turn it on.
We can do this as a civil penalty rather than a criminal prosecution. It's much more efficient and economical for us to do that. So it could be a monetary fine of $100 or something of that nature.
Do we have something already on the books for that, or just,
Sure we do.
okay?
Not for the dog not to be in that park, no, there's nothing on that. But for the dog to be at large or for the dog to be a nuisance, that is on the books right now.
So we could do something now.
Sure.
We just need occasional law enforcement to stop by and, or put their surveillance up
Surveillance
and
would
cite
be-
them.
Mr. Mayor, I understand the concern, but I'm not supporting of the no dogs there. I think we want to encourage that, but encourage proper behavior by the owner and, of course, the dog. I would encourage that.
I would too, so I think surveillance would be the best thing.
yeah, the surveillance camera would be, we have power there.
So we'll give direction to staff to find a solution for this, or at least start a solution.
Sure.
Okay.
Your non-agenda public comment says no action may be taken. Directing staff might be taking action, but we hear you, and we'll put this on an agenda in the future for you to discuss options.
Thank you. All right. Any other comments from the audience?
Elizabeth Tabor, 242 Main Street. I thought of you, Sue, when I got the agenda this week. Yay, there's no cannabis on the agenda. But here I am. So I'm sorry.
I forgive you.
I have been thinking all day, I don't know how to approach this very well. I sent some emails, but now that I've spent half the day at work, I can't not bring this up. We had 4 people in today. Because it's a small town and supposedly the federal government came in yesterday and visited us. so that's the word on the street. It's upsetting. I've never had that in Mount Shasta. City police, or any city officials have any right to come in and say hi, show the place, check things out. I had the police department come down when the Bureau of Cannabis Control was here last month, so they could meet them and kind of see what their inspections were like and what they do, and get some communication going on with the city. And then a couple officers came down yesterday to make sure I was removing the word weed off my front windows, but I had already informed Paul last Thursday that I would probably have that done in 7 to 10 days because my graphic artist is out of Reading, and it's a very small job, and I have to pay his transportation and so on and so forth. So I was a little bothered as to why it would take law enforcement to come down to make sure I'm complying with something so small. And it was upsetting. It was, you know, I've always collaborated with Martin or anyone. They could have called, you know, it's going to be done soon, or Paul had told them before they left that he'd already talked to me, it was going to be taken care of. And everyone knows that my neighbor is a Siskiyou County Sheriff's wife, so when she sees law enforcement coming in or the passersby, our whole goal was to create a facility here that looked nice, that wasn't a head shop, that didn't create, so people wouldn't think the sky was gonna fall, and maintain that elegance. And it's kind of generating a negative when now people are talking in town that if the police department comes down, oh my gosh, there must be something bad in there, we must be bad people, we're doing something bad. It's creating me more harm than good. Especially if it's just a phone call over if I've removed a word off of my front window. I have no problem if Martin or anyone comes in on 3 months or 6 months and does a twice a year or yearly inspection and leaves me a piece of paper saying they were there and we have a grade, pass, fail, whatnot. But something has to be resolved, or some better communication or something, because this is not what our goal was to set this up here in town. This was not to create a negative presentation, to have people talking and assuming there were bad things taking place there, to draw law enforcement there. And I'm hoping whether we have a meeting outside of here or something, but this really affected us today. And being a female, I've been emotional all day, maintaining my temper, and it just feels awful. It feels awful. That was never my intention, to be in your city, to disappoint, to not comply, to not present something professional and nice. So I would just like something worked out somehow.
And we hear you. We will discuss this with Martin, but I don't think, again, this is open comment period, so we're just going to leave that. But we'll open up discussions with Martin in the future.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? There we go.
Holly Hanser, 211 Pine Street, 334 East Lake Street. I could say everything that she said in the last part about being a girl, being a woman, and all of the, some of the things aside from the cannabis aspect. Interesting, the last 3 years, the City Council has had cannabis on every one of its agendas, and as well as the Planning Commission, and anti-Holly's kind of fence on the agenda. So we've made the illegal legal and the legal illegal. In any event, in response to Jimmy, I want to remind, I didn't know that the sheriff's wife had a business next to Elizabeth's place, but I want to remind the City Council that, in response to Jimmy's thing, that there's still a health and safety issue, and it's still declared that, even if the Planning Commission, et cetera, has declared it not to be a health and safety issue on the issue of cannabis and marijuana that's longstanding in these United States of America and up until recently the state of California and the city of Weed. And I'm grateful that Ron Stock declared in the last city council meeting my fence not to be a health and safety issue, that it seems like that was trying to be pushed upon me or upon my fence, upon my property. And I would like the city council to know that I do not know what to do, as I wrote to the attorney, if you would check your email. I do not know how to respond to what seems to me to be a grave injustice to do with revoking even one of my fence permits, let alone all four, as recently as last week, before Paul Morton had a chance to even, or opportunity to go out and even inspect them. And I'm completely baffled as to why I've been given 30 days from the 27th for Paul to inspect my fences on the fence permits when the permits have been revoked. So I'm at loss. And there's conflict of interest, I believe, with the mayor and the mayor's son being the chairman of the planning commission, the son, and the father being the mayor. And there's other conflict of interest here in the city of Weed, I believe, with the Weed Long-Term Recovery Group, the Weed Parks and Rec District, and even the College of the Siskiyous and the Bulls Fire victims and all of that money that was given to help us. And my application of 20-plus applications United Way of Northern California that were denied with Sue from the Planning Commission, from the, whatever it is, City Council on the board of that gave the denial to do that. So I just want to let you guys know that I will try to do whatever legal way that I can do this with speaking to the attorney if he's given permission to respond to me, and or the Siskiyou Superior Court, and also working with Paul, but I need better understanding of what would be the purpose if my fence permits have been revoked for him to inspect even one fence permit. It doesn't make sense to me at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. Any other comments from the public?
Hi.
Hi.
Rishi Hill, 8024 Sugar Pine Road. I hope so. Okay, I will try my best, Sue, I promise, okay? And I will try and be longer than Jimmy. Just kidding. Okay. All right.
As long as you can do it under 3 minutes and your clock,
I'm
clock is
losing
ticking.
time. Okay. I live out on Sugar Pine Road. I realize we've all discussed Sugar Pine before in the past, and some of us think about it more than others. So, and I also realize that Sugar Pine is not within city limits, but with the increasing development in South Weed, Sugar Pine Road continues to be a bigger and bigger problem. I've lived out there 18 years, and I'm knowledgeable about the issues that exist in terms of traffic, prescriptive easements, public use, none of which are managed. And it's very difficult to manage in any way. The issue is also not easily solved. I have learned through numerous meetings with Hammond Ranch Landowners Association, the county, both Michael Kobseff and Todd Lamanna, and we had it counted. I've met with the city and Ron Stock, and I'm aware that there doesn't seem to be an easy solution to our issues out there. But I am coming to the council, and I want to know if we could try and protect our residences out there while the city obviously benefits from all the development in South Weed. There has been talk about possibly putting a gate up. We cannot put a gate that denies all access. We could potentially put a gate up that denies through access that would help our residences. The problem is just not going away. It's getting worse and worse and worse. And it's not feasible that we as private landowners maintain an easement and maintain a road for the entire community to just be able to come back and forth. I go back and forth about whether or not I don't feel like it should be gated because I feel like there needs to be emergency access. But at the same time, it's hard to get the sheriff out there. Weed PD won't come out there. It's not their jurisdiction. When I have issues, people speed, people drive recklessly, too many people use it, and we can't afford to keep the road maintained like that. So I am here this evening to ask the council if you would consider putting the issue on the agenda, on another agenda, and to possibly put up and maintain a gate on Sugar Pine Road. I have spoke with Mr. Newton, and he has actually agreed to have a gate placed on his property, which would take it off of the residence's property. And if the city would be able to maintain that gate, that would take maybe some litigation away from the homeowners. I just believe that further and further, as I'm looking at this happen, all the developments in South Weed are making our traffic so much worse, and we don't have a sense of residence out there, and I don't feel like I have, or any of us have, a way to make this better. And I'd like ideas. I'd like to sit down. I'd like to talk to all the landowners. There's got to be some way that everybody can sort of coexist and this can be a happy place. There's got to be something that we can do. So my question is, would the council consider doing something like that? Would the council consider putting this on the agenda? Because I just feel that it's just going to get worse and worse and worse, and the problem is not going away.
Mr. Mayor, before you answer, I have a question. Are you the property ownership president, or is that president involved with what you just discussed?
I am not.
Is the president involved with what you just mentioned, those concerns and issues? Because listen to me,
okay.
people have been coming every month and speaking about that. So since you mentioned the homeowners association, how is that president or board attached to your comments? Are they aware?
Over the years, we have discussed it with the homeowners association about what might be legal for us to do because of the prescriptive easement and because it's been an easement for so long. It denies us access. The law states that we may not deny access to that road. We may deny through access, but establishing that is actually very difficult in itself. All of us own into half of the road. So where is that gate going to go? And that's why I have asked Mr. Newton for permission on his property instead, because it takes that liability away from the property owners.
Mr. Mayor, my question is just, I'm just looking at the connection with the homeowners association, which everyone out there residents is a part of, right?
It's not a mandatory.
Okay.
It's not mandatory for us to pay dues for the association. And that's the way the bylaws were written, apparently, before we even moved in. So a lot of this is very difficult, and I realize that. But we also have a really unique problem on just that one small section of Hammond Ranch.
Mr. Mayor, my point piece is that I'm just looking at the connection with the outside city limits organization or residents coming to Weed and having space on our agenda, which is free public comment. But I see it continuing. It's going to keep continuing until something happens, either whatever way. So I'm just concerned about that.
I would bring up the fact, as your point's well taken, is that you have a loose organization called the Hammond Property Owners Association. They have addressed me on a letter regarding several topics, most of it regarding Sugar Pine and a proposed project at the site.
I'm not talking about the proposed project.
I understand.
We've been talking about the road for.
I understand,
yeah, okay.
But all of that leads me to try and figure out who are we responding to, as Mr. Green would state.
Okay. I'm asking as a resident of Sugar Pine. I'm asking as a citizen of our community, somebody that lives in Weed, would like to continue living in Weed. I am not here for the association.
I get that.
This is personal.
We can, I can't guarantee any action, but staff can look at something, I don't know. Would any direction, we don't want to take any direction at this point, but we'll take it under consideration for next agenda item. Okay?
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
It's also a matter of jurisdiction. I mean, this is a county issue. This isn't the city of Weed issue. Correct? Okay.
So I go back to the county?
I would start there.
I have.
Oh.
Thanks for your time.
Ushi, are they, is anybody saying that the government can't put a fence on a piece of private land?
They are saying that we may not deny access. The way I understand it is that you can deny it through access. But everybody is so afraid. And that's why I asked to put this on the agenda. I know this is not supposed to be open to public, to comment, right? But the problem is that nobody wants it on their property.
Oh, of your private landowners that are on there, nobody wants to, okay.
Because when that gate gets run into, when that gate gets broken, when something happens, when something goes in there, then that person is going to be liable. So it's a big problem.
And now you can see why the city may not want it either, though.
I understand
Okay.
that.
And it's outside our.
And we
jurisdiction.
have very deep pockets.
I come to the city not because of one entity, but all entities, and our community is growing.
Okay.
And I understand the people that don't want to improve Sugar Pine Road because more and more people travel it when we do. But we live in a different world than we did 30 years ago. And why can't things change with the times instead of being stuck with laws that were created years and years and years ago that don't make sense anymore? There are things out in South Weed that people want to get to. I think it's great. I think it's wonderful that we're doing all these things. But the problem is it influences our residents. This is our home.
I get it. Okay. Thank you.
Hi.
Name and address, please.
Yeah, it's 1635 Aika Street. And Aika,
Your name?
Bob Tesh.
Okay, Bob. Thanks.
And, yeah, I'm here. We've been visited by the police because we need to renew our drug paraphernalia permit for Enjoy Weed Shack. And I'm one of the owners of Enjoy Weed Shack. And so we just think that the code is a bit archaic because we have to take down names and addresses when people buy glass pipes or anything from the smoke shop part of our business. And so we'd like that to be reviewed by the city council, the municipal code, because it just seems outdated. You know, it's one thing to show a identification to show that you're 21, but then to have to take down the person's name and address for buying a piece of glass just seems, you know, doesn't hold up. So, yeah, we'd
We hear
like
you.
that.
We hear you.
Yeah, we'd like that reviewed by the city council.
Is the law say only glass?
Well, it's drug paraphernalia.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, so it just, you know, we sell pipes and water, you know,
And
water-based.
and it doesn't matter what they're made of, you still have to get a name and address.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right, thanks.
And a lot of people, you know, have problems with that, you know, and it's, you know, for obvious reason. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Any other comments? With no other public comment, we'll move on to the regular part of the agenda. Actually, we're not even there yet. Excuse me, council member announcements, meetings, reports, and comments. Let's start off with Councilman Stacy Green.
Mr. Mayor, I just have some comments that community members have mentioned to me. about the city, the cleanup and the status of the community. There's weeds and things all over the place. I know we have staff, I know how that's attributed, but they have mentioned concerns about weeds being pulled, just the cleanliness of our city. I had a direct response that I should do it myself when I asked about the sign for sand, and I didn't respect that, but I'm not going to address that. But by a leader, I had that response that, why don't I pick it up? I don't think that's appropriate. I think we have paid staff and whoever, we need to put more, but I think people say we want our city more beautified, whatever that means. I know I see trash that's on public property and on private, but my concern is about getting that type of response that I can pick it up. That I can, but that's not my duty. That's not what I was hired for or voted for. So I just want that to say, because it's been bothering me for a couple of weeks, and I think I had to say something when I heard the other comments. We have concerns also, and that's from the community. People mentioned me to mention here, why isn't the city doing more about the cleanup? And one point that I know we talked about, in front of the pizza factory, I think that's city-owned property, and we talked about some groups that might be able to beautify that, and that hasn't happened. So just some follow-up on that is what I want to mention.
Okay. Kim?
I don't think I have anything.
You don't think?
No, I can't think of anything.
Counselor Tavalero?
I do. Let me put on my microphone so everybody can hear me. We had a very nice open house at the fire department. The mayor got dropped into a hole and rescued. And lots of people turned out, signed up. We had 15 or so that signed up for a first aid CPR class. And it was fun. That's all I have to say about that.
It was a great event.
Any updates on the community center?
It doesn't have sheetrock yet in the inside, but it's getting close. And there's the concrete is all around the outside. They've put the things up over the door. I'm waiting for the there to be sheetrock on the inside. I'll tell you when that happens. Okay.
Is there an anticipated expect date update versus what we've been hearing? June, July, August, or anything that you have in specific?
September 15th.
Okay.
14th.
Sticking to that date, okay.
No, I wanted it to open in March. So now I'm going with September 14th.
So if I could ask on that, May 1st, did you guys reach your matching date for May 1st or not? Your matching money from Shasta Regional, or get close or no?
I don't know. I hadn't had the final report. I asked that the other day too. Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I don't have much other than respond to Councilman Green's talk about the trash cleanup. I've been thinking about this for quite a while, and I think I ran out, thinking about it. But I really believe that we need to do a community cleanup and volunteer. I just saw Mount Shasta, not that we have to keep up with the Joneses, but I thought it was really, not the picture in the paper that they got together and they cleaned up the community. But, that publicity stuff's nice. But if you looked at those faces, there's nothing like a volunteer when, after a day, when you get 30 or 40 people together and go out and strategically clean up some areas. And I would really, I know we have a cleanup on the 2nd of June. I'm going to be out of town. But I think there's something, if you're willing, maybe you and I can get together and try to see if we can form a volunteer group to clean up, if we can work with staff to work with the dump area, I guess you call it the dump now, the sanitary, whatever it is. But I think we really need to do something like that. I'll join you if you're willing to.
I'd be willing to help, but I want the mindset on the speaking of what people are responding about. It's my job, that's not my job. I want that.
No, but I'm just, it's a possibility to lead.
Yes.
It's I'd also like to mention that Saturday, there's a film festival up at the COS. In the evening, it starts at 7 o'clock. Well, I understand there's many films. There'll be short films. We have 2 films we know of our water situation here in Weed that'll be shown. And it can be quite an event. They also have the at 1 o'clock showing for kids, or for people that want a little tamer entertainment, but it really sounds like it's going to be something that we should take advantage of. This is one of the cultural events that we, as a community, we really need to take advantage of. These are very, the documentaries, basically documented in really well done, and that's Saturday night, this Saturday night, May 12th, at COS.
Are there schedules of the times of each? There's one, I know
Yes.
one at City Hall. Is there anywhere else? Newspaper?
They're
On
in
Facebook.
different places, different stores. We've,
Under what, under Facebook?
I'm not sure. It was
Facebook has it, yes.
Okay.
Could I ask about the cleanup day?
Yes.
What is the cleanup day?
Well,
Is it anything, free dump day? Is that also what it is, or?
It is, to a certain degree. There is some items that you have to pay for, be it a mattress or something like that, but it's free dump to the local citizens of Weed, city limits.
City limits?
Yes. Saturday the 2nd, 10 to 2,
I do have a question. on
June
that.
2nd?
Okay.
June 2nd.
On the flyer that was in our water utilities, or utilities, it didn't mention if seniors don't have access to have items picked up. Is that available for seniors or anyone who doesn't have mobility issues?
All
Or
they
that
need
have-
to do is they need to call us and say, hey, I got this, and we'll come get that.
Okay. It wasn't on the flyer, so I wanted to just ask, so everyone hears, and that's good,
Problem,
thank
the
you.
problem when you advertise that,
Then everybody becomes non-mobile, right?
yeah.
Okay.
I have a trailer, it's already loaded, you just hook it up and take it.
Possibly, is that where you wanted to kind of join forces on that cleanup day, Bob?
What do you mean, John?
You want to do a community cleanup day. Can we do it on that same
I
day?
don't think we can do it that quick.
Okay.
I don't believe we can organize that quick and
Okay.
get our locations we want to focus on.
Sure
Okay.
you can.
If we can
I'm
organize
gonna be
something
fine.
in the future, we actually have budgeted for 2 cleanup days a year. So
Beautiful.
we can do that as a second item, or second time.
Beautiful.
Possibly the Black Butte landfill may also want to help. They just did the Earth Day.
Right.
We just were a little bit, I think that's what Bob was referring to. I was on the cleanup from some of the other communities. Okay.
My thought is Councilman Green and I will get together, or
Okay.
I guess being as we started it, get together and set up a date for a meeting, organizational meeting, and try to get the word out to everybody we can, and have that meeting. It'll take a couple meetings to get together to see what we want to do, to make sure we're focusing, set our goals, realistic goals, and get those taken care of. But I think it would be too fast to try to get it in beautiful. We have another date that'll work. We'll do it. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. On my small little plate, I did a presentation with a couple others to the Board of Supervisors regarding visit SiskiyouCounty.com, which is a website sponsored by the Board of Supervisors. That was just an update for them to continue a contract. I also wanted to report on the senior lunches. We're averaging about 45-plus people per Monday. So again, it is being very successful. So I want the council to know that their money is being well spent. I also just heard a report today at another meeting that the local transportation board is announcing a $40 per month student pass to ride the stage from June through August. All you need to do is present a student ID. So for any of the high school kids or college kids that are around town, it could be $40 for the summer, but I'll have to reserve myself on that one.
Can I add to your report by telling you that we agreed to assist the county by selling those passes here at City Hall? So if it's someone who is in our community that wants to buy one, they do not have to go all the way to Wairika to buy the pass.
That's good news for everybody then.
Is there age restriction, either of you?
All they have to have is a student pass. I don't think, age wasn't mentioned. I think it's designed for the teen and young adult, but it said student ID, so I'll have to pass on that detail.
We have a lot of
over,
ride the stage, so.
or seniors that are going back to school. I was wondering that.
Okay. Also, Stacy and I attended labor negotiations, and the results will be discussed on items B, C, and D. So that's the end of my report.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I've got something else I wanted to mention, I'm sorry. I want to remind people that we have the senior van is in operation on Mondays, so pick up and take, at your home, if you're a senior, 60 or older, you can be taken to right now, the Berean Church for a wonderful lunch that you mentioned. Tuesday and Wednesday are for senior Weed residents to be taken to shopping, or doctor's appointments. That's Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Thursdays and Fridays are for the Shastina. And that there again is for appointments and shopping in Weed. And so far, there's really been a lot of appreciation from the Shastina folks, that understanding that they feel like they're part of the community. And here again, 60 and above, and that goes for, I think, hopefully people can pass the word that anybody that needs a ride. And to tell you the truth, it's actually a lot of fun. I happen to drive on the Fridays, and people get together, and there's quite a gathering, and you have a good time shopping, and so check it out if you're 60 or above.
Who do you phone for the ride?
That you phone the
Weed
Weed Recreation Department, which is 4685, I believe.
938
get a cell number?
4685?
Not yet.
And the cost, for Lake Chastain, there's a small cost, I know, right?
Yes, excuse me, and a $3 round trip.
For Lake Chastain, and
Makes
Weed
sense.
residents, no cost?
No cost.
No cost in Weed, no cost in Weed residents.
Any other announcements, reports? Okay. On to item A of the agenda, Community Development Department fences, hedges, and walls. Council will consider second reading and adoption of ordinance number 447-2018, amending chapter 16.40 regarding fences and amortization. Do we need to do a staff report, Ron?
Yeah, I can do that. When you adopted ordinance 440-2017 that changed the design and materials that were permitted for fences, you made two directions to staff. One of them was to the city attorney, asking him to draft an ordinance that would amortize those that were legally erected under the old ordinance but did not meet the current design and materials of the new ordinance. That's what you have in front of you. It grants basically to those fences a 10-year amortization period so that the people who erected those fences have the ability to gain benefit from their investment. There are two exceptions. One is if the fence is not properly maintained and it reaches a point that more than 25% of the cost of a new fence is required in repairs. They're required to actually conform to the new ordinance. And if a fence is, because of its physical condition, becomes a hazard to public safety, they can be required to take the fence down within that 10-year time period. That completes the staff report. Oh, I should say that this was presented to the Planning Commission for review, and they unanimously recommended its adoption.
Okay.
I do have a question, Mr. Mayor. I have a lot going in my mind. So, Mr. Stock, so if someone doesn't comply, they have 10 years to stay uncompliable to reach a conclusion. Is that what that's mentioned by within 10 years?
If they have legally erected a fence, they have 10 years.
Okay, if they, well, I hate to do legally and illegally, that means court. But if they have not, the fence has not been put up correctly, I won't say legally, but correctly, per our ordinances and pieces, do they have within 10 years to make that correction or not?
No.
No.
Okay, it has whatever is voted on in, like, in said meetings, last couple meetings, some things were set, some dates. those dates still apply, is that correct? Like 90 days, 30 days, whatever it was?
Yeah, if a fence is not legally erected, and when the property owner calls for final inspection of a completed fence, if it requires modification, that modification has to occur in order to obtain the 10-year amortization.
Okay, I asked that because the question was asked earlier about what's to be done, but that clearly states, I remember the last meeting, what they have time limits for and what to do within that period. That could become legal.
Yeah, they have to have a reasonable period of time in which to make a correction. So you can't give a blanket date. For example, it may be something very minor that can be completed quite easily. That would have a shorter time period than something that was more major. And so we give to the building inspector certain discretion, and he has the ability to say, this can easily be completed in 60 days or 90 days or 120 days.
And the last question, for our existing issues that are up, have those parties and the building inspector been communicating?
Well,
Just an
we're
open question.
getting to the point that there is only one that hasn't had the final inspection and a write-off. So you're asking a question about just one fence in particular?
No, as a city official, I'm asking a question to be general of all issues that may have come up yesterday, 2 weeks ago, 6 months ago, 9 months ago. I'm asking if that been addressed according to this. That's all I'm asking. About communication, that's all it is.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that. I wasn't trying to put you in a hole or in a corner. I wanted to make sure that the legal questions are understood and answered, so everyone knows.
Any other questions to staff? Nope, nope. Okay, any public comment?
Yes.
Name and address?
Holly Ann Hansard, 334 East Lake Street, and my yard, the void of my house, is at 211 Pine Street, Sue. And everyone. It's not just a lot. It's not just a lot. It's not just a vacant lot. Before you do the second reading of this, I voice my opposition to it until 2 of the 4 properties that were affected by this, by these change of law midstream. We, people who built after the Bulls Fire lawfully, to the best of our knowledge and belief, with materials that were allowed in a way that was allowed, are understood. Ron Stock just said boils down to 1, which could be my neighbors, the Laotians, there at 393 Pine Street, because my fence permits were revoked last week. So I am completely baffled, in all honesty, as I have been, of how this will affect me. In the meeting last week, I was told that you guys could put criminal charges against me. I mean, that's what I heard. You could do all sorts of things, if this, if that. So I don't know how to get Paul out to inspect a fence that doesn't have a fence permit anymore because you revoked it. What is that? So obviously it's illegal because it doesn't have a fence permit. I invited him before this to inspect, but he wouldn't. And also the definitions of, what my fence is versus the retaining wall, the definition of original grade, the definition of as an owner builder, can I do something that an engineer can't do, that as far as with a grade? I don't need an engineer to determine where the grade for my building would be, Sue, for example. So I am not an engineer. I am not a architect. I'm not a builder professional, but I am a homeowner builder, a homeowner who did not have insurance, fire insurance. Less fortunate than Sue, as she said, please give us money to help people who are less fortunate than herself. and the Weeds Long-Term Recovery Group. I am a homeowner that did not, and property owner that did not have insurance on the time of the fire. So I am at loss, and I would like perhaps the attorney, if he is given permission, maybe you guys can give him permission to advise me, not as an adversary, but as a help of how I can be not so distressed that I cannot function, that I cannot continue, that I am at loss of all of my life and property and all that. So can you please respond to allow the attorney to communicate with me in a way that is favorable as a win-win instead of adversarial, please? I do not think that this is, when it says legal in existence. You guys have just made my fence illegal, and you've decreed it last week against what is true,
Holly?
to be done illegally, and that's scary to me.
Okay, so what your question is do you want Mr. Winston to respond in a non-adversarial way? Is that your question? I'm not sure what your question is.
Mr. Winston may be able to reply to this. I don't know if you saw the email that I sent to him today, if I could ask him if he did see it. But if he could look at that, I've asked him, telling him that I'm at loss. I do not know what to do from here.
And Mr. Winston can respond for himself, but I believe that he is working for us at this point in time.
And you're adversarial to me?
I don't believe it's adversarial, but I
Okay,
don't know
good.
if he can give you free legal advice.
I was in court almost all day today, so I did not see her email, but I'll look at it and I will respond.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to add.
Can I tell the council some fact that the council's unaware of? If Holly would simply read the letter that she received from the building inspector, she would understand what her next move is.
I have read.
And that, allow me to finish my speech.
Sorry.
She testified before you that she had completed her fence. The permits were withdrawn so that she cannot construct more fence. But we are accepting her position that she has completed her fence. And all she needs to do now is call for a final inspection. She received a letter. It was sent to her both certified mail and regular mail for her to call for that final inspection within a time period. I'm doing this from memory because this is not the issue that's in front of you tonight, so I did not
But it's right
prepare
there.
for discussion of it, but I believe that it was a 60-day letter.
30.
At that time, the building inspector will make an inspection and determine whether or not the fence has been built in compliance with the permits that have been issued. If it has been, he will sign off on the permits and construction is complete. If it has not been, he will inform her what needs to be done in order for it to be in compliance. He will provide that as a written document, which is an inspection report, which he provides to each and every property that gets a final inspection. And she will be given the time necessary to make the corrections that are required in order to comply. So when she comes here saying, I don't know what to do, I know what she should do. She should follow the instructions of her letter. We're accepting her position that she has completed the fence and she's finished. Call for a final inspection.
However,
all of the-
last
Holly,
week, you
hold
did
on.
not accept my
Holly?
statement of that. Thank you.
So all of those items are in that particular letter?
The fact that she should call for an inspection, yes. I had a follow-up conversation with an engineer who says he's assisting her, and he asked for clarification, and I provided him with all that, the same information I just mentioned to you.
Okay.
That what she should do is call for final inspection.
And I wanted to add, Mr. Mayor, that was said in the last meeting. I was here. And my concern is that repeatedly coming back because of not understanding, I can understand that, but I was in the meeting. I know a letter was sent, and that is my instruction to follow and comply. You said, first thing, to the best of your knowledge and belief. Your knowledge may be skewed if you're not following compliance issues.
Well, to the
And I don't
best
need a
of my
response to
knowledge
that.
and belief, I worked with Paul all along. I did speak with Paul right before he went on vacation, and he said he would get back to me in a week or whenever he's going.
Okay.
Can you just follow the instructions on the letter, what
The-
the council has
But
said?
Hold on,
But
Stacy.
the definitions that you guys said last week was different than what Paul told me in the field. So he told me in that meeting last week that he would not pass it.
Okay, conversation's over. You have a letter.
You haven't, okay,
You have a
anyway.
letter. Your engineer has also reviewed the letter with our staff. I would suggest that if you can't understand the letter,
and made it 100 feet instead of 50, that would basically solve the problem. But we've been doing other things and haven't gotten to that.
Maximum distance 100 feet.
Yeah, from another
Yeah,
structure.
from
So maybe we
any
can work on that.
structure, so it doesn't have to be from your house. If you have a large lot and you're 50 feet from somebody else's property, you have to cut the weeds back. But Darren was saying 100-foot would be more realistic, considering the amount of empty space where some houses have not been rebuilt.
Most of the plans in California require 100-foot.
Oh, good, then let's change ours.
I will also note that insurance companies are not using protection classes like everybody keeps intimating anymore. Fire insurance is looking at what we call fire line scoring. Three things add up to the score: fuel, accessibility, and slope. Any one of those three, they are doing aerial photography anymore and GPS, and they are redlining. You're not supposed to, but that's for lack of any other term, they are cutting people off of fire insurance. Now, you can always buy it through the FAIR plan, but anytime you have to buy it through somewhere else, you know what happened.
Cost is up.
It could be triple. There's premiums of $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 now.
Wow. That's something we should be aware of, because per our pre-existing fire and the things that it cost, we've seen implications of that fire line being challenged and property line. That's something that we should look at.
Typical example would be Hillside. Hillside is still pretty good, but it's probably what we call a fire line 4. I would venture to say that fire line 4 eliminates probably 60% of the companies.
Didn't they have to rebuild their houses different on Hillside?
No, it has nothing to do other than.
Oh, really? Of the build?
clearance, Fuel source, slope.
Okay,
Pretty much done.
so I can do this, I move the reading in full
Yeah.
of the body of resolution number 17-2018, allowing the weed fire chief or his appointees to issue open burn permits with a fee.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Let's move on. That was close
Pick who
enough.
you want.
Do I have to do the then?
Now we gotta,
Well, not anymore.
Okay,
We
that's
just
good.
approved it.
I'm good.
Let's go on, move. Staff, well, on items removed from consent, we've done that. Staff reports. Steve, you're up.
As Sue said, we did have an open house. 3 of you here attended that open house. We had about 75 people from the community attend. We will now have a CPR class because of that. Our volunteers did a great job. We had a fire extinguisher class, and the kids loved it. And now we do have businesses calling to see if we can bring a fire extinguisher class to their business as well. Because they say, we have fire extinguishers, but we've never used them. So can you bring that here? And we're like, sure. So thank you for coming, and thank you for being our patient in the pit.
Hey, that's.
I know it was uncomfortable, but
Yeah.
I really appreciate it, and most of the people said, wow, you're the mayor to do that? And I was like, yeah, so it was really fun, and I think we should do it again next year, because we had a lot of people come, and they didn't know we had all the equipment that we have and all the stuff that we could do. So it was really
I
good.
think the kids really enjoy the shiny objects.
And we have a great video
So the adults.
that one of our
Maybe adults, too.
volunteers made about what we do as a fire department. It's on YouTube. It has over 1,000 hits already. So,
TV, how come we can't show
yeah, we could show it.
on, everybody
It's a short video, but it's really good. And we did use a drone for part of it. It was kind of fun putting it together, so it's a really good video. And
It's on
I'd be
YouTube.
glad to show it. Maybe next meeting we can show that video.
I'd like to add to, you mentioned young people, but some adults that I sat with and talked to who have been in the community a while, they were so impressed by what could show, they said, I didn't know we had that. I think it's a great tool. Anything we can mechanize that, put it on our maybe city hall for 30 days, city hall site for 30 days or something, just let people arbitrarily know. It was a great information piece, and I was glad that I attended, and something I didn't know that we had. And I've been here for a long time,
Appreciate it.
coming back, so I think it's great. Oh, I hope you say he's going to be on it, the schedule for upcoming events too, or
I would
just?
like to do an open house every year, to be honest with you. It was fun, and we got, we got stuff donated to us. Grocery outlet donated the buns and chips, and, Solano's
Yeah, that's
donated prizes so we could give away.
Right.
We gave away fire extinguishers, we gave away smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detector, and, Sue was able to get some hot dogs for us, so. It's pretty
Next year,
minimal
maybe
cost.
we get Martin to do free rides to Wairika or something.
We do that now.
Everybody wanted to,
Yeah, we already do that.
everybody wanted to ride in the fire truck, but we
The
didn't do
senior
that.
shuttle, we could use that to shuttle people back and forth to
There you go.
jail.
And we just added some fire prevention stuff, and that's.
Very,
that's our goal.
very right on.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Kelly?
Quickly, grocery outlet doing quite well. Rodney shared with us how well they were doing, way above expectations. And it also attracts, that name attracts other people. And there's, like Rodney had said, visiting with him a number of times, that there's faces that he sees there he hasn't seen before. There's a lot of people that it attracts from, greater than just our little area. So it's quite encompassing. The RV, five-star RV park out there appears to be moving along. This has been, I know, in the mill for how many years? A lot of years, huh? How many? Huh?
I think 1996 it was approved.
Way back when, but anyway, he has a lot of things that are already approved, but his architect is working on some stuff right now, so they're spending money on it, so hopefully something comes to fruition on it, because it really help.
Any other businesses?
Yeah, there's some others that Ron's been talking to.
Kelly, can I ask you a question? On this page? On the top part where it's, what month would that be? April?
Sales tax page?
Yes.
Okay.
So April, it says 59. Above it, it's 101. But last year, in March, it was only 56. Is that a correct number?
These numbers are, the state gives you advances. What you do is look down below. Those are actual taxes collected. You see, it says actual sales tax collected for the quarter, and it'll give you the periods down there.
Okay.
This up above is what they call advances. They're not really advancing it, other than our merchants collect that money and send it to the state, and they massage it for a number of months before we see it come back to us. So these numbers here are just projection, and every quarter, as you see up above, on the table up above, every third month, you'll see an odd number. That is supposedly a settling up of an exact amount, but you can never get those things to balance because they're odd.
Yeah, because the first 3 months, July, August, September, are about 285 to 286. The actual money we collected was 278.
$278,731, and the next quarter was 319. Next quarter, 272. So those numbers down below are
Those are actuals?
supposed to be actuals from the state.
I have a question why we can't have actuals with what's consistent with what the sales tax history is. That's just compiling of numbers. The top should match the bottom. We shouldn't have to identify
Yeah,
by 3 months.
It doesn't. That's a state. We have no control over that.
But I'm saying it can be communicated in reports. Regardless of what you receive, you can go by month, by their periods, right? And show what we're receiving so we
I
can
don't know
match
what's
numbers.
reported. All I know is what I get from the state. And
How do
they
we know?
send it, this
The
is
state
exactly what
sends
they
you a
send.
report.
I just don't agree with that, okay? I don't agree with that. Where we send to the state, we should have record of, so we know what's
We
going on
don't,
month
we
by
don't
month.
send it to the state.
It's sent by the businesses in our city, right?
Businesses, right.
So we
And
should
they
have
don't
some
report
communication
anything to
attached to
us.
it.
No, you can come in, Stacy, and I can show you.
It's not for me to come on, I'm saying we should have it on reports that's issued for the
Oh,
people to
I'd
know.
love to have it from the state. We're lucky to have what we have.
Lucky? How are we lucky? It's their
The
responsibility.
state, yeah.
We're not privy to state
These-
income
these
tax,
are the-
and that's what he's talking about.
They're the ones that do the audits on the businesses.
I have no more questions about that. Thank you.
But anytime you want to come in, I can show you what they send us.
I have no more questions about it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Martin?
We were hoping to have a presentation this meeting to talk about school safety. And unfortunately, we had some scheduling conflicts with our school officials, and so they couldn't make it to that. So we're going to shoot for the June meeting to hopefully get them here for that.
Okay.
Both of them?
Both of them.
Sandy?
Oh, won't they be knee-deep in
No,
graduation?
no, they should be done.
Oh.
They're graduating the week before.
Anything, Sandy?
Yeah, I just wanted to take this opportunity to personally thank all of the department heads in my last 6 months of training, Craig included. Steve, maybe not. They have helped me immensely. So the gentlemen down here on the floor have been a huge support for me in my learning, so I really appreciate them. I just wanted you guys to know that.
Thank you, Sandy.
I just want to add, I thank you for your flexibility in things that we've talked about and we've seen. Thanks for your flexibility in the issues, people, environments, community members that have come, and you've managed that great. I think that's a huge plus.
Thank you.
Mr. Stock, any reports?
3 items. The city attorney is telling me that the title company is requesting a resolution authorizing either the mayor or the city manager to sign closing documents. So even though I had the purchase agreement for some land on a special council meeting on June, I'll come back with a resolution authorizing again with a resolution to meet their requirements. It is very likely that I might have a development agreement, which is the other half of that potential project, and we may be able to go public with that particular project. The city might have the authority to put up a fence based on easements that we have that would prohibit people moving from Sugar Pine into the city. But if we did that, we would not be putting in a gate and nobody would be driving across. What you hear from Sugar Pine is that they'd like to have a gate that they could use that nobody else would use. But the problem is there is no public right-of-way on the city side. So if you put in a gate and you gave people the combination or keypad that they could open, then you're authorizing or enabling people to violate property rights. And once you do that, then you're subject to liability for those costs. So we could put up a fence, but they wouldn't be happy with the fence because they'd like to come through on a shortcut. They just don't want anybody else to come through on a shortcut.
I'm just not sure that it is the citizens of Weed that are actually using that road. I wouldn't use it. I don't even drive my old car on it, much less a new car. But that being said, shouldn't they be getting some kind of resolution from the county? Or there may not even be a resolution because they're the ones with the road.
It's a private road.
Yeah. And I feel bad, but I'm going, what can we do here?
We don't own it.
Okay.
The county's position has been that they don't have enough money to maintain the roads they already have. So they're hesitant to take on additional roads. But they told them that if they brought the road up to county standards, they would accept the road. The problem is bringing the road up to county standards is fairly expensive and probably beyond the means of the homeowners.
And then it would also increase the traffic load.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Thereby defeating the purpose
So they
of,
need to make the road
we're
worse.
living on we're in a no-win situation. So what else we got?
We have had a pre-application conference with I'm going to disclose the name, Tractor Supply, that is in negotiations to purchase the property immediately to the south of Grocery Outlet. They would like a 3.5 acre parcel. If you remember when we did the subdivision for Joganum, in order to get the well site, he asked for 2 acre sites. It's very simple we can actually administratively approve a lot line adjustment to create the 3.5 acres, and are willing to do that. We're trying to assist the developer in putting together a package for a conditional use permit, architectural review, and sign permit that can get approved by the Planning Commission. They're probably, at this point, 6 months away from having an application reviewed by the Planning Commission.
Can I ask just for location, is that along the Charlie Bird Road to his old houses?
It would be the next site on Black Butte.
So behind Grocery Outlet, as my colleague said. Okay.
And they, of course, want to have outdoor storage and display. But they are proposing a 20,000 square foot building. To visualize that, Grocery Outlet is a 20,000 square foot building.
Just, no, you make me think now. So as far as the parking area and the road to the parking area, to the possible location, is that going to be city maintained or someone else?
Black Butte is improved to the location, and that has been accepted by the city. They would be installing driveways and parking lots, but the driveways and the parking lots would be on private property and would be their maintenance. Black Butte, however, has curb, gutter, and sidewalk. It also has drainage and utilities. And so the portion that's Black Butte, that would be city maintained.
And I'm trying to get my location. I'm sorry for my not understanding. So where it turns to dirt road, that's not maintained by Black Butte, right? And after Grocery Outlet, there's a few feet and it becomes dirt road. So I'm thinking right after that, that's actually the location.
No, it's actually paved all the way to Commerce Court. Commerce Court is the
Right behind Chevron.
yeah, it's the cul-de-sac behind Chevron.
Oh, so it's not behind Grocery Outlet, it's the block over.
No. What I'm telling you is that Black Butte is actually paved beyond this site.
Okay, I have to go look because I don't visualize that, but I'll go check it myself.
Here's Grocery Outlet. This is going to Charlie's house.
Right, and that's Black Butte Road, right?
Yeah.
That's not all paved back up to there, because I
Well,
traveled it, right?
it's paved, I think,
not all
for
the way.
enough,
I know it's
for
not.
their entranceways, probably, not the whole road.
Right, and that's what I asked, was it, so I wanted to clarify. I know the street because I drove to his house, but I just want to make sure I understand. Sorry for the confusion.
Well, I can be wrong, but I was told it was totally paved all the way to the end of Commerce Court.
And Fire is not, right?
It's a Commerce Court, it is, but then if you keep going, it's not.
Right.
But they're not buying as you keep going.
I understand that. I asked for the location, I got the answer. Thank
But the, if a development would be going on the dirt portion of it, the development would end up having costs for improving the roadway. That's all I have.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to comment on that. That area there is definitely something that we want to be looking at as far as cleaning up. I mean, it's really a mess out there. That's something that by getting some businesses out there, I think, well, first of all, if we go out and clean up that area real well, it might give some people some a little cleaner look as far as thinking about something down the road. But I applaud you for good work. We need to do something with that, utilize that property. It's not a dump. It is some very valuable property. And I think we're moving in the right direction there.
I have a question regarding none of this.
subdivision where Great Northern Building is that on our agenda? I thought it was gonna be under on our agenda. Or is that already approved by the planning commission and a done deal?
It got preliminary approval by the planning commission, but then they modified the plan. So, the modified plan, I believe, came before the council, if my memory is correct. But, that's not a final
I don't think
approval.
the modified plan has been before us yet. Okay.
It has
all right.
not. It
All
got
right.
ready to get
I
pulled.
thought maybe I was supposed to I missed something, but I thought it was on.
Did it ever get in front of the council?
No, they
Okay.
had a scheduling conflict this month.
Okay, all right.
They pulled it because they wanted to modify it. If you remember, they were asking for 7
Now
units,
they're down to 4,
and now they're down to 4.
and they still don't have a road.
They still do not have a dedicated roadway.
Okay, so anyway, okay. How's your report? Is that done? I feel myself wearing out. I don't know about the rest of the council. Bob?
Nothing.
Oh, I like that report.
She was so ready, because she's got her microphone on already.
Motion to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, aye.